Previously.
I want to do something with Kerbals, but as with any space program, our Kerbals are only really used to life in and around Kerbin, so we need to prepare them otherwise. So we're going to send up a space station. We release our launch stage, and yes, I know I have left the launch stage in orbit yet again. We are continuing to build up rubbish everywhere. I realised I had not put the tech onto them to allow it to do that. We should maybe put a science lab up there. I think we're getting quite far in our science search at the moment. I quite like going to other planets and getting a bit of science. Please use struts. They're really useful. They stop things wobbling. I am in a hurry, and I decided to get rid of that excess rubbish. So yes, another piece of rubbish floating around in the same orbit as our space station. Yep, there we go. Finally docked. I just pushed it in. We're actually going to send the veterans home. They've been on the station there for a while, and I also wanted to test this return craft. Welcome back to basics. So today is the day we are going to be sending some Kerbals beyond the sphere of influence of Kerbin. MacLeod has gone before and then came back very quickly because we got quite scared. We're going to be going to Duna or June or Duna, depending on where you're from. So you'll see I take a lot of care about our return vehicle there. Put a heat shield on the bottom. Put lots of parachutes on. What you probably notice as well is that I don't put a decoupler on. That will come up later. I have decided we're going to send 2 Kerbals, but you notice I've put a hitchhiker storage unit on the bottom. I want them to have a bit of space, so we're going to give them the extra space of that, plus a 3-man pod that's only going to have 2 of them in. We're going to go to Duna. It's going to be wonderful. We're not going to land on Duna because I think this is our first trip anywhere, and I am a little bit worried. So I spent some time building what I think will look like a really cool craft. The fuel tanks for our nuclear engines do not fit very well into the size of craft that we built, so I'm trying to be a bit creative and think about how to make it look cool. And oh yeah, that's a nice little bit there. We'll put these on the side, and I think this looks cool right now. I pay the price for this artistic approach so much in this mission. It is actually unbelievable. Please, when you're designing a craft, think about practicalities. Test it out. I didn't test this, and I probably should have. But I'm not testing anything in this series, which is why things tend to go wrong at times. Wonderful for viewing, terrible for me. I position the one piece of science equipment on one side, the antenna on the other side, try and counterbalance each other because they're both quite heavy. Put our solar panels in there. We're going to Duna, so solar power is going to be usable. I am assuming there'll be enough there. And you'll see I'm actually positioning our science equipment in such a way that I can access it from outside the craft, but just by walking down the ladder. I don't want to have to do EVAs all over the place, primarily because I don't want to run out of EVA fuel. And I'm working on this craft going, right, okay, what can I do with it? So we've got these girders down the middle. I don't think this is the best design of craft ever. I've put an automatic control bit in there just because I'm aware that we may take the pilots out at some point, and I'm worried about that. I'm also thinking, can I put some extra delta V in here? So we take some of the smaller fuel tanks and I start playing around with those, and I'm thinking, oh, they might fit into the structure there. They don't go up. You can actually use, I think it's the Alt key or something, which would have forced that up, but I wasn't thinking at the time, I'm going to be honest with you. So there we go. We've basically positioned these things nicely. We've got our little metal rack on the outside of the tanks, which I quite like. Reminds me of sort of real life space. We put our fairing on it, and we're gonna, we're gonna bling it up. We're gonna make it shiny. Now, I cannot use our normal launch vehicle for this because it's too heavy, so I have to build a new one. And I go Kerbal on this one. What can I say? We're going to start off with a stage that looks a bit like our previous launch vehicle. We're going to have that poodle engine there. I like the poodle engine. It's nice for just around Kerbin sort of ejection burns, things like that. And next I'm looking at, right, do we go for the old faithful? A lot of these engines I have never used. And I think I may have gone for the mainsail, which has now changed its skin since I last saw it. And then because I like the thoroughbreds, I'm thinking let's put some thoroughbreds on there. So we've got mainsail, not got much delta V though. I'm lacking delta V. How can I get more delta V is what I'm actually now thinking to myself. Start looking around. Do I want a different engine? concerned about thrust and whatnot, and yeah, so we swap out the engine for one with a bit more thrust. We put the nose cones on, and I still don't really have enough. Now, I know I should have enough Delta V in this craft, but you know what? I don't want to have Kerbal stranded in interstellar space or whatever, so we're going to put some drop pods on the side. This is something I don't normally do. Fuel from the outside tanks flowing into the inside tanks. Wonderful. Love it. Brilliant. Put some cones on the top. Do I have any cones that match? I'm having trouble finding cones that actually are these. I didn't realise. I think I've actually put some offset. No, they're actually straight. I thought they were offset from an angle. So that's our craft. Completely overkill. Very Kerbal. I could have done it in a much more sensible way. But we're going to Duna, so, you know, let's get going. So, our two crew are on the craft. Veterans now. They've been everywhere. They've seen everything. They're obviously, look at their little faces. They're clapping with excitement. They're not scared, honest. They're just really excited. Release the solid boosters first, and then it's very unstable. Is one of the problems with this craft. It is very unstable to get into orbit. It shouldn't be. Get rid of the additional fuel tanks, and they explode, which is wonderful. I was actually at one point I thought we've blown up the main booster. We're going to die. Brilliant. And you can start to see the problems that I was having. The craft inside the fairing is shaking. It's actually shaking through the fairing. I should have also got rid of the fairing at this point. I kept it because I realised that the fairing actually has some internal struts, I believe. So imagine if it didn't have those. So we finally get rid of the fairing because I need to get the solar panels out and do whatnot. And then we need to get our transfer to Duna. We're going to be burning out or outside of the. You can see some of the orbits of some of the other craft there because we was done at the same time. We're going to be burning outwards. You can see it's actually easy enough to get an intercept with Duna. It's pretty much on the same plane as we are-ish. It's the next planet along. It's nice and easy. So yeah, we do our thing. We fiddle around with the maneuvers because I'd like to get a closer encounter, and I'd like to do that burn close to Kerbin. But yeah, you know what? I'm happy at the moment. I've got so much fuel at this point. I've got my main stack's got a load of fuel. I've got my second stage got a load of fuel. I am sorted for fuel. I'm you know, this is a perfect example of overkill. I'm like, we've done it again. Yeah, this is going to be so easy. I time warp towards the correct maneuver node, get everything sorted. We've got to do a bit of science. Yeah, we've got some stuff there we haven't done before. Wow, this is awesome. Start to burn, and it starts to wobble like a crazy fish. Look at that. And I have to actually stage it at that point. I can't go on. And then you see the wobble continues, and the wobble is the girder system. The little decoupler in the middle of the girder, and the fact that nothing is actually strutted to anything else, means this thing is wobbly beyond belief. And I am broken at this point because this is the Duna transfer window. I could put another craft together, but I'd have to get these guys down, and then I'm going to have to send a different crew. And I'd actually got in my head that this was the crew I was going to send because I have some other plans. So yeah, I just wobble it all the way to Duna. It's horrible. It's like a fish swimming to Duna. There we go. Swim, 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 swim. Even when the thrust stops, it keeps going. So the only thing to stop it is time warp. Not to anybody else who does anything like this. Please strut things. Struts are your friend. We do a little bit of sort of preferably, you know, editing our craft. I was so carried away by the wobbling that we actually introduced some extra sort of delta V all over the place, and it was just annoying. So we get sort of high space science or low space science around Kerbin and vice versa, and we're just checking that any of the science we could have done before we haven't missed. We set our time warp notification, and then we just speed forward until the point where we're actually going to be in interplanetary space. And this is all just, and I do this in one take because easy enough. So we're going to put a little burn in there. We just we bring ourselves up, and we're still quite a distance from doing it. You'll notice I used the maneuver node to show me which direction I needed to burn in, and then I just did it manually. If you're starting out, don't do that. because once you get nearer a planet, you'll see there I could have actually put an additional sort of radial burn in, and if I'd have combined the two of those, that would have been a lot more efficient. And let me just point out, I've thrown away a lot of delta V around Kerbin already, so yeah, at this point I'm feeling okay for my delta V, but later on, yeah, I start to wish that I had that back, and you'll see why. So we're coming into Duna now, and again, this is all in one take basically. I've just fast forward all the way through. We come into the sphere of influence. This was quick. Duna is a quick mission compared to the ones we've had in the last few things, and I decide I can get an intercept with its satellite, its moon, and I think, why not? Just do a little flyby, get a little bit of science. This isn't Joule, is it? So we come down into the sphere of influence, and you notice I'm trying to come as close to the surface as possible because I want to try and get that low level science now. Anytime you go close to the center of a planetary body, a moon, it's going to affect your path and all that sort of stuff. So I'd actually gone over focused on this at this point. I should have just gone for Duna and been happy with it, but I was like, yeah, get the science, get everything. So we get high over, and we get all the science, and then we get out, we collect it all, and it became a bit of a, get out, collect, return, and this can be a bit what Kerbal turns into when you're playing on career mode or in science mode. It just becomes a science fest. If you ever look at any of the speedrunners, I think people like Ronan Pawn and people like that do Kerbal speedruns, I would recommend checking those out. It's actually staggering just how they work their way through the science. So we go along, we get low over, we get all the science out and stuff like that, and at some point we're going to get out again. Now, I am sure I have missed things like crew reports or EVA reports or anything like that. In all honesty, we could have probably landed there. We could have put our craft down on that moon, because it doesn't require much delta V. So we're coming out, and we can't really do much. For some reason I try and transfer crew, but then I realise it's transferring data, and we can't really do much about our orbit until we're actually in the Duna orbit. We could play around in the moon's orbit, but you could accidentally end up actually landing. That's what I was concerned about. So we get high over Duna again. We recheck all of our science that we should have done when we arrived, and we collected some more, but we're going to recollect it because just in case, and store that. And then we've got to try and get ourselves, and this is a waste of energy. If I'd have actually, again, this is a perfect example of wasting delta V. We've now lost that second stage, in effect, our standard second stage. We're lucky we actually kept on to it, because we've wasted a lot of delta V here. Your birth effect says the most effective burn we could have made was right around Duna. If we'd have given up on, I think it's Gilly, is it? If we'd given up on that as a rendezvous opportunity and just gone for Duna, we'd have had a much more efficient set of burns. As it is, there's some horrible burning going on here. So we're actually potentially, I was looking there at a second encounter with the moon to then bring us back down, and those sorts of things lead to craziness. In the end, we just burned the fuel we've got. And I'm still feeling reasonably secure at this point. I still have not noticed the heat shield and the fact there is no decoupler. How I did not notice going past it so many times there was no decoupler, I don't know. Yeah, you're going to see that at the end. We use our nuclear engines. Now, having two of them, it makes it actually sort of, you can maintain sanity doing these burns, because if I'd have planned this to be as efficient as possible, we'd have had one nuclear engine on this craft, and these burns would have taken twice as long, but have been more efficient because we wouldn't be carrying the extra nuclear engine. So we do our science and stuff, and I'm thinking, how far down do we go? Can we get any lower? We've got the science I want. We've got a lot of science built up now. We will be coming back to Duna. We have not finished with this planet. It is the Mars equivalent, and we're going to come back to Duna. We're going to come back big. Next time we come, we're coming big, because this was an embarrassment. If there is life on Duna, they have seen us and they are embarrassed. So, and then the joyous, wonderful bit, which is when you travel interplanetary, there's a lot of waiting around. So I try and actually combine a lot of these missions together. So I'm doing them in batches of 3. So we had Elu and Jewel at the same time as the Duna mission. And that fills up some of these gaps. But unfortunately, the Duna mission, it had this point here, which was just constant waiting over and over. You can go into the by the way, if you've got epilepsy, I apologize for this. Really should put a warning up for this. Probably haven't. It just goes on. It just goes on, and it takes forever. I think you know, it was about 1.5 years of Kerbal time to do this. So if you're planning on doing things like this, do multiple missions at once. You know, be like a real space program almost, and do some stuff in between. What I should have done is actually put some more stuff on the space station, but I wanted to do this in a batch of 3, and there was not more to do. So we're ready for our return from Duna. And the irony is, I think the return takes a lot less time than the actual waiting for the return. So we're going to be heading back towards Kerbol. So we're going to do retrograde burns along the travel route of Duna, and we can rotate it slightly off that. And I'm looking around trying to just get an intercept, and to be fair, it was harder than I thought it was going to be. I've got Alarm Clock setting up these windows of when it's most optimal. You can get some things online that will do it for you, and they'll tell you the number of days and things like that, and the intersect speeds and angles and stuff. I was doing this by eye. I wasn't too worried about it. We line ourselves up. We're going to end up reasonably close, and just get there. And I'm just keeping an eye on our fuel tanks, just trying to see if I can actually move any around a bit. And I'm actually checking that we're accounting for all of our fuel, because I'm concerned, looking at the amount of Delta V that we've got right now, that because I've just noticed that we do not have a decoupler on our heat shield, and I'm now thinking, how do I rescue this craft? Because with that weight and that drag, the way it's orientated, there's a high potential that this craft flips in the atmosphere of Kerbin. And if that happens, the parachutes burn up. And no matter what else about the heat shield, if it flips, we're dead. And we don't get any of the science because we've not transmitted any. So I set up our intersect with Kerbin, and off we go. And it takes a while to get there, but in reality, I'm actually just focused now on how do I save this craft? Because that heat shield is a problem. We've put a lovely thick heat shield on there to protect us, but we're not going to be using it because it's actually liable to cause a problem. I could be really technical at this point, and I could do all sorts of things. And I do a little burn. I want to change my Apple apps. I want to change the height that my periaps with Kerbin, because I've decided on my course of action at this point. And my course of action is I'm going to burn the rest of the craft off. If I go in at the right angle, at the right depth, you will see I will get things to explode. I left the solar panels out on purpose. So I'm hoping that, and I start to use the engines at this point because I want to get some extra heat into those. I need the engines to burn off quickly, and they do. My hope was, and it happened, I needed the girders and ideally the hitchhiker container to burn up first, or the science unit, the science junior underneath, and we got all of those. I actually think what we actually had happen there was one of the girders that was holding the engines, which were on, that burned off first. They pushed us sideways. That side swipe bit, put us into the hot, flamey stream of plasma, and that took out the hitchhiker canister. And as second that happened, the weight of our heat shield, the aerodynamics that we've got, just pulled us right round, and we're safe. Now, I'm pretty sure I could do that 4 or 5 times, and it would go wrong. Obviously, we didn't kill all of our Delta V, but we killed enough so that we would actually stay around Kerbin, come around for a second burn, and come in. Now, the main reason I chose to actually burn off the ship was I was concerned that if I damaged the engines, or they were damaged or something, and I didn't go deep enough, we could actually go back into interplanetary space, and I cannot rescue the guys from that. So there we are, our first crew to another planet. We haven't landed. We get all the beautiful science that we're going to spend before the next episode. And yeah, so lots of science to be done. I'm going to go through the science tree and spend some of that science. Until next time, when we're going to do I don't know what, because I haven't figured it out yet. Have a great one.